Summer routines live or die by how easy they are, and honestly, if something takes too much effort, I'm out. That's why Groons is my go-to. It's my one daily pack of gummies covering my greens, vitamins, and minerals. Plus, it has 6 grams of prebiotic fiber, which is more than 2 cups of broccoli. No mixing powders, no giant pills, no hassle. I just rip open the pack and I'm done. They taste good and they make it easy to stay on top of my health, even when life gets busy. Save up to 52% with the code PODCAST at Groons.co. That's code PODCAST at GRUNS.co.
Man, we have a lot of news to get to today on the Russo Hockey Show. We have a playoff series to preview. We have a goalie decision to break down. But first, I just want to beg you, Michael, through whatever power that is invested in you with all the NHL decision makers, please do not have scary-looking virtual fans in the stands during the NHL playoffs like we saw on Thursday night during the Fox broadcast of the Twins game. It was like a Stephen King movie or something.
It's funny. I've been trying to get a picture of Lavelle because I wanna buy a Lavelle Neal with like a glass of whiskey in one hand and a cigar in his mouth. I think how hilarious would that be, like behind home plate?
Well, I mean, I didn't talk about the cardboard cutouts, which I can go either way in the cardboard cutouts. At least that you can be clever with them. At least you can highlight something. I'm talking about during the Fox national broadcast of the Twins game on Thursday night. When you saw like Nelson Cruz jogging back to the dugout after, making it out at first base, you saw like the superimposed fake mannequin-like virtual fans filling the stands, and like Nelson Cruz would disappear behind the fans in the front row. It was really badly done. It was semi-frightening.
Yeah. So far, I mean, all the bells and whistles of the NHL we're going to see in both hubs, Toronto and Edmonton, we'll see starting Saturday when the NHL playoffs officially begin. But right now the way it looks is that the lower bowls have sort of like this cool NHL, I don't know what you would call it, a tarp type thing, but NHL signage that's over the seats that you would see maybe in an arena that doesn't have a lot of fans, that when they tarp down the upper bowl or something like that. But to me, it looks really slick, actually. So far, I like what I see. I like the way that the NHL is doing it, and we'll see if it continues. But yeah, I was worried also that the NHL would like superimpose fans and things like that. Maybe they'll start doing stuff like that once the actual games start and they superimpose things on TV. But right now, we're not seeing that.
Good. We will get to the actual news here in a second. He is Michael Russo from The Athletic. I'm Jim Suhan from the Star Tribune. Brandon Morton is our producer. Please subscribe to this show and or the network at your favorite podcast app. If you'd like to advertise with this show or the network, you can reach me at jsouhan@talknorth.com. Follow us on Twitter at TalkNorthPod. Check out all of our new shows across the network, including our Gopher content. And thank you to our sponsors, Profile by Sanford, Bosch Law, Twill in the Edina Galleria, which is now reopened, thank God, and Tony Hoagland, your State Farm agent in Champlin. So let's get to, I guess, the newsiest news, which is that after saying there was going to be some kind of an open competition for starting goalie, they basically just went with Alex Stalock. I mean, was it always going to be Alex Stalock?
Well, no. I mean, they haven't decided. They haven't announced who's going to be the goalie yet, unless you know something.
Oh, really?
I don't know.
You know what? I will say this. I read that someplace, or maybe I overread what I read. Yeah. Maybe I assumed.
Yeah, I think that we're all assuming it's going to be him, but right now they're not announcing. I mean, let's be honest, they know. I mean, I can't imagine that the coaching staff doesn't know, but it's the playoffs, and they're clearly keeping this in house, at least as of now. They'll practice today in Edmonton. They took Thursday off, practiced in Edmonton we'll practice today in Edmonton, and we'll practice Saturday in Edmonton, and then they open on Sunday. And right now, I do think it's back to an actual, at least in the last couple of days, a debate internally with the coaching staff because Alex, didn't look very good in the exhibition game where Dubnyk did look good. And a lot of times in a short series, maybe you want to start with Dubnyk and then have Alex come in and be the energy guy if things go awry. But I think that I think most likely choice is going to be Stalock at the end of the day. But at least now they haven't announced who the decision is going to be.
And how did you think Dubnyk looked the other night?
I think he looked fine. I don't think the team played great while he was in net, which is part of the debate, I think, internally with the Wild, is that the team seems to play better when Alex is in net. They were by far, I thought, in the first half of the game, the better team, and then things started to go a little bit south late when they got a bunch of power plays, and their power plays just couldn't convert. But Alex looked rusty the other night. A couple bad rebounds. The McKinnon goal. I mean, McKinnon went from 0 to 60 in his own end zone to being in the right offensive zone faceoff circle in probably like 3 seconds. It was crazy watching how fast he got up the ice. But still, it's a shot that probably a bigger goalie gets, right? I mean, that's the issue. I think a lot of times when people talk about Alex and whether or not he's a true number one is that, and you saw it on that shot when they showed the view that Nathan McKinnon was looking at. Man, did you see a ton of net? And he picked a spot and he blew it there. And Alex's angle was off there, but I mean there was a gazillion breakdowns in front of him. Brad Hunt got turned around. Eric Stahl took a bad pinch in the neutral zone. Jordan Greenway lollygagged back to the bench. It was not a good play by the players in front of Stalock.
It's always a good show when we get to the word lollygag. That's one of my favorite Russo descriptions.
Yeah, I hope it's a real word.
It's close enough. I mean, it's been in a movie. That's all I need. Was it Tom Hanks and I think it was Bull Durham. I think it was Bull Durham, which I think might have been Robert Wool, which is a great use of the word lollygag. All right, let's get to an actual kind of breakdown of the Vancouver Minnesota series that we've been anticipating for so long. First, we do want to thank Profile by Sanford. How's that going for you, Michael?
It's going really well. I'm a pound from 40. 40 pounds down since May 1st. So I think tomorrow's my 3-month anniversary. I'm bad at math. June, July, August. Yeah, 3-month anniversary, 39 pounds. And things are going really, really well. I mean, it's really simple program to follow. As long as you're disciplined. I mean, it's like anything else. I mean, you got to be disciplined. You got to follow the program. You got to get your activities in and things like that. And frankly, it's not like, I mean, anybody that knows me knows I'm not going to the gym every day and doing a bunch of circuits. I mean, I'm essentially going for long walks and getting on the bike sort of every day. But things are going great. And I've mentioned to you before the personal coaching that you get with Profile by Sanford. Danette's my coach. And I met with her yesterday virtually via Zoom, which is the coolest part of the whole program, is that we're going to continue that even, though a lot the stores have reopened and things like that. But you go over your challenges for the week, and this is going to be a challenging week for me. On Sunday, the Wild have a 9:30 p.m. game. On Tuesday, they have a 9:45 p.m. game. So that right away tells you that if these games end at midnight and I'm writing till 2 or 3 in the morning, you're putting in longer than your normal full day where you would have a multiple where you would have your normal 3 or 4 meals a day. So you go over those challenges, what to do if all of a sudden at midnight you're absolutely starving, and you come up with realistic goals to achieve those, to make sure that you're not falling off the program. And that's the coolest part of the personal coaching. So I don't know what people are waiting for. The food's delicious. I feel constant support, and it's absolutely working. And there's 6 locations in the Twin Cities, other ones on the outskirts of the Twin Cities. So for more information, go to profileplan.com and tell them Russo sent you. Again, go to profileplan.com and tell them that Russo sent you.
Good stuff. All right. I've gotten the sense, just reading about this series, that a lot of people think, at least a lot of Minnesota-based writers and analysts think that the Wild have a real chance of winning this series. Is that realistic to you?
I think it's definitely realistic. But it's amazing. I've been looking at a lot of the pundits, and everybody's picking Vancouver. I don't know if we've run our predictions in the Athletic yet, but the last I looked, it was like 86% of Athletic writers were picking the Canucks.
Wow.
I saw the Sportsnet people the other day. I think they had like 15 or 16 prognosticators. Only 2 or 3 picked the Wild. Which is just shocking to me. I think it comes down to goaltending and why they're doing that. Because I think if you look at the Wild and the Canucks, I mean, the series is very evenly matched. The top 2 lines of Vancouver, very, very good. But it's not like the Wild's top 2 lines aren't good. The Wild's 3rd and 4th lines are superior to Vancouver, in my opinion. Their top 6D as a whole is superior to Vancouver. So it really comes down to those top 2 lines and goaltending. And to me, it's a very even series. And I think people are forgetting too from the time that Dean Evison took over. The Wild were the 2nd or 3rd best offensive team in the NHL. They were just absolutely loading up the net with goals, and it wasn't just Kevin Fiala; it was pretty much everybody on the team. And the other thing is even strength wise, 5-on-5, the Wilds were one of the best teams in the league all season long. I think they finished 4th in that area. Their power play from February 4th on was 2nd best in the NHL. So this is a team that could score. And I think I don't know if it's just in a short series that all these prognosticators are just saying the Wild's goaltending is what's going to doom them, or if they're just being lazy with kind of looking up what the real numbers are. But if you actually pull out the not even just the analytics, the simple stats on the series preview, these 2 teams are very evenly matched. So I absolutely think the Wild can win.
Does the long break and a chance to rest up and maybe heal benefit one team more than the other?
I think it helps the Wild just from the standpoint that they are the veteran team. They're 4th oldest of the 24 that are back, and a lot of the guys did look tired down the stretch. Eric Stahl looked very, very tired. This can't hurt guys like Parise and Suter and Stahl and even Dubnyk and Koivu and those guys. So, Matt Dumba looks like somebody that's on the ice that looks like mentally he believes this is a different season, and that can only be good because this wasn't a very good year for Matt. So, I think that it helps. You can make an argument either way. And until we actually see them on the ice and how this thing transpires, it's all just kind of, conjecture.
Does Vancouver have any advantage just because they didn't have to cross a border and deal with the international quarantine?
No, they've been there 5 days. And frankly, again, every team, the quarantine that all 24 teams faced was in the bubble. So they weren't as strictly quarantined as what you would consider to be a real quarantine. The quarantine was considered in the bubble. You could do whatever you want in that bubble. The bubble was considered the quarantine. So if anything, got like people like Brock Besser, who when he crossed back over the border to go to Vancouver, he had to go and quarantine himself for a number of days in a hotel room before he could actually get around the team, things like that. So. I don't think that at all affects anybody. The Wild had the hardest travel in terms of getting to Edmonton. Their pilot didn't show up for a couple hours, and so they were late getting off the ground. But that was 5 days ago, and I think that they're all these NHL teams are officially out of the bubble, the strict quarantine today. And what that means is, so in the last 5 days, you were essentially only allowed to be around your group of guys. You had to eat either in your mailroom or at night, one restaurant in a certain window. Now tonight, the players will have the run of the board of the bubble. They can go wherever they want, do whatever they want, eat wherever they want, and sort of not worry for anything. And so that is the end of their sort of 5 day, let's call it isolation, just amongst each others.
And what kind of vibe have you gotten from Evason? Bruce Boudreau was a very good coach. He did seem to get a little fired up, maybe sometimes uptight in postseasons. Do you have any read on Evason and how he's handling this?
I think with Dean, I mean, again, everything we're seeing is via Zoom, so you don't get
Right.
that special one-on-one treatment. But I mean, he's intense, he's confident, he's keeping everything close to the vest, like a playoff coach usually does. I will say, if you look at his Milwaukee record, his playoff numbers were not good there. I think he won 1 out of his last 15, if I remember correctly, 1 out of his last 15 games. But that's a little bit deceiving too, because if you think about it, in the playoffs, a lot of times Nashville pulls up a lot of the guys that you would see maybe in Milwaukee. That again is very deceiving. So we'll see the way he is, but I can tell you, I agree with you that there were times that where it felt like Bruce would get uptight and start to get in his own head in the playoffs, and maybe that's one big reason why he hasn't the playoff success that he has had in the regular season. We haven't gotten that ability to see how Dean Evison reacts yet in tough times in the postseason.
Absolutely. Hey, let's say thank you to Bosch Law, one of our newer sponsors on the network. Bosch Law Firm handles a lot of workman comp stuff, but I'll let them tell the story.
Hey everyone, Attorney Jerry Bosch here with Bosch Law Firm and WorkCompExperts.com. For almost 30 years, we've represented Minnesotans just like you all over the great state of Minnesota to guarantee they've been treated fairly and with respect when they've suffered a work-related injury. A work injury can change your life in an instant. You need someone on your side who can help you focus on getting back on your feet and getting paid while you do. You may be entitled to medical benefits, wage loss benefits, job placement, retraining, and payment for permanent disability. To make sure you are being paid all the work comp benefits you're entitled to, please call the attorneys at Bosch Law Firm. The call is always free, and there's never a fee unless we recover benefits on your behalf. Call 651-333-8300, Bosch Law Firm, or visit us at WorkCompExperts.com.
All right. Anything else you want to get to before we go to Twitter questions?
No, I'm just looking forward to watching these games here. The exhibition game, I was just blown away by the fact of how intense it was. Normally you see these teams go through the motions and just not even try to hit each other and not even try to hurt each other and sort of in their own best of their ability, keep in a situation where they don't get hurt, put themselves in a situation where they don't get hurt. And we saw it the other night. I mean, guys were pounding each other, hitting each other. Landeskog was feisty. Koivu was feisty. Foligno was feisty. Dumbo was feisty. It was a hard-hitting, intense contest just because it was two NHL rosters going up against each other with a bunch of players that know each other. So they don't like each other, those two teams. And so that was the interesting thing. So I've got to think that once the puck drops in this Vancouver series, it's going to be the same thing. There's no dipping your toes in. It's real now. The postseason starts on Sunday.
Yeah, it's going to be fun to watch, even if the games are late at night. At least we have real hockey back. And I admire the fact the NHL, 0 negative tests. What do you make of that? That's an amazing accomplishment.
Yeah, I think it says a lot about the maturity of these players. Phase 3, these guys were allowed to go about their lives, go into public, go to bars, go to packed places, grocery stores, all that type of stuff. And I think that all these teams around the league really, impressed upon their players that, look, we can't go to the bubble sick or we're going to ruin this whole thing. So just go to the rink, go home. Go to the rink, go home. Don't go out. And we'll know if you go out, by the way, because this is a social media world. And if a player goes to Cowboy Jacks or the, KK Club or whatever it is, in Dinkytown or whatever, there's going to be pictures of you. It's going to be mentioned online, all that type of stuff. So I think these players were smart and they went back in every single market. And I think that says a ton about them. And now that they're in the bubble, again, theoretically, I did that story the other day, is that once you're in the bubble for 5 days, if they continue to have no negative tests, as long as the general employees that are working in the bubble that are getting to go back into society are responsible and tested and are covered with PPE, you should be the most protected of anywhere by being in this bubble. Is if it's a real tough, tight bubble where nobody can get in. So I think they're going to be able to pull this off. And I give the NHL credit. I give what's going on in the NBA and Major League Soccer credit. Major League Soccer hasn't had a positive test in a couple of weeks. NBA, 2 rounds of 0 tests in a row as well. One thing we haven't talked about Jim, is sort of the ethics with the fact that throughout this country, it takes forever to get tests, and in some cases, forever to get results. And yet, the NHL, the NBA, Major League Soccer, all these leagues have commandeered tests and are getting results within 24 hours, or they're not allowing these players to take part in the next day's practice or game. So that's pretty interesting to me. In Florida, I think one thing that they did do is that because of the major problems with testing down there, the NHL wasn't doing the full molecular test with the nasal swab straight up the nostril and deep into what feels like your brain. I've had it done, and it makes your eyes water. They were doing sort of swabs in the mouth, and they're less accurate, but you can get a test result in 15 minutes. So the fact that both so far the Florida Panthers and the Tampa Bay Lightning got to Toronto and have, as far as we know, not anybody testing positive, that says something really good about even the fact that maybe those tests are more accurate than we originally thought.
Yeah, my wife and I both got tested because we've had these nasty coughs, and we just wanted to be careful. And I will say that my testing experience was very easy, very quick, and I got results within, I think, 3 days. So that's my experience for what it's worth. Let's go to Twitter questions now. Kyler Vosforit, why do coaches say the best guy will play when it sure seems like Kakinen was the best goalie in camp? I just don't understand why coaches make liars of themselves. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think a lot of that was to make sure that Devin Dubnyk and Alex Stalock came into camp ready to go, to make them feel like this was a competition that Kakinen could come in. But you're right. I mean, the fact that Kakinen really hasn't been considered, it seems really considered, pretty much spending every single practice in the B practice, not being part of the lineup the other night. I think it says that maybe Bill Guerin and Dean Devison came to a decision that it was not going to be that twofold. It wasn't the right message to the team to throw a rookie goalie in there. And all of a sudden, kind of cast aside two veterans that are very much liked in that locker room. Especially Alex Stalock, who is just extremely popular with that team. And then the other thing is unfair to maybe put Kakinen in that position where all of a sudden maybe he melts down and now he loses his confidence, and you have a bunch of teammates sort of pinning the rookie goaltender for this. So, Stalock and Dubnyk have been the goalies here for a long, long time, and it's going to be their show as of now. It appears.
Good deal. That was a good first Twitter question. We have a lot of more good Twitter questions I want to get to. I do want to welcome back Twill in the Edina Galleria, coming back into business. Scott Dayton's shop in the Edina Galleria. Thank goodness they're open again. They were doing virtual business, but now you can actually go in there. They're open after being closed for 60 days. They have great deals, spring and summer merchandise that is still left, including golf wear, shorts, T-shirts. They have a lot of good items. If you're doing a lot of Zoom calls, go buy a new shirt. The people watching you will appreciate it. They have new fall goods coming back into the store right now, and they have a brand new Stenstrom shop for people to check out. I bought, I think, 4 Stenstrom shirts, and I got rid of all of my other dress shirts. They're just so much better than anything else I've ever owned. So check that out. We're going to bring you other new developments with Twill as we go on here. Again, it's great to have Twill back with us, twillmn.com. Or check them out at Twill Edina on Instagram. From NH on Twitter, how would you preview the series with the Canucks without mentioning the words young and veteran?
Yeah, pretty. I don't know. Isn't it funny? Like, you come up with these storylines and then you just kind of beat them to death. And you're right. Until everything's sort of just a shot in the dark right now until we actually see the way that this series transpires. And I mean, the first couple games are obviously. Not to say something so obvious, but it's going to be extremely huge to just figure out how both these teams settle in a short series, how the coaches react really to an initial loss. I mean, if your game one and one of your goalies, whether it's Markstrom or Stalock or Dubnyk, gets lit up, I mean, how much wiggle room can you get? Do you immediately make a change? I think back to that 2007 to 2014 series with Colorado, and Brizgalov started that series, and things went awry after the first 2 games. And then Kemper came in, and the series got evened up. And then And then the Wild fell down 3-2. Were able to tie up the series with Kemper and net. Then Kemper got hurt. But usually the pattern is, as we saw in that series, is that your number one goalie gets the first 2 games. So if all of a sudden, your number one goalie in game 1 gets shelled, you have to go to the bullpen quicker than normal in a 5-game series. I'm thinking of another team right now, Las Vegas, the Vegas Golden Knights. I mean, Marc-Andre Fleury, like Devin Dubnyk, did not have a great year. Now they have Robin Lehner as a backup there. If Fleury does get the number one job, which I assume he does, if all of a sudden Vegas gets shellacked in game 1, do you immediately come back with Robin Lehner? It'll be interesting.
Absolutely. From John Tomlinson, did Dumba find his shot?
He's had a really good camp. He's looked good in camp. I always, that's another thing I always try to couch. It's so easy to get optimistic when you watch guys in camp when they play against each other. But, we saw in that one-timer the other day, that was a hell of a shot there, the pass by Stahl and the 4-on-3 by Dumba. And right now he looked like he's ready to make an impact in the series.
From Ben Wilkie, no Russo in the locker room. Does this team break off a 2003-like deep playoff run with this weight off their shoulders?
Probably. I mean, and also, I was joking about this with somebody with the Wild the other day, just like how fitting would it be? Like, this is the year of the Wild go on a run, and no Minnesota Wild fans get to take advantage of that by being in the building. It's just, it really is amazing, the situation that we all find ourselves in right now watching this from afar. And that'll be the most difficult part of this whole thing. It's like, right now I'm sort of, I'm still uncomfortable, but right now I'm sort of okay watching it from home. But man, if the Wild win the qualifying round and go into the first round of the playoffs, and I'm watching that first round at home and then the second round at home, it is going to be freaking difficult, and I will not be in the best of moods. I was actually talking to an NHL source of mine the other day about this exact fact. Is there a way that the NHL could work with the Canadian government to try to essentially work out a way where writers, if all of a sudden your team winds up in the conference final or finals, can come up with some sort of way to get past that quarantine, but do maybe a smaller version of a quarantine with a bunch of testing and things like that to make sure that we can go up there and cover it. Because that's the problem, is that a lot of the U.S. writers that didn't go up there, you can't all of a sudden now go because of the 14-day quarantine. And again, if you advance in the qualifying round, it's not like you can go because you still have to do the 14-day quarantine. And by the time you get done with your quarantine, the team's either going to be in the second round or eliminated. So there's just no way to catch up now with the quarantine. And so that's something actually the league, I think, is going to discuss behind the scenes, because they are actually genuinely worried about stuff like that. That, all of a sudden, veteran hockey writers that have covered the team forever, like myself, can't get up there.
Two things. First of all, I don't think it's a coincidence that this team made its only real long playoff run when you and I weren't covering the team in 2003. No doubt. And the other thing is, I just have this image in my head of you being smuggled in the back of a big truck, maybe like they bury you in some poutine and you have a straw to breathe through, and they get you into Canada. Canada doesn't want anything to do with us right now, but maybe that's the way we get you up there.
Yeah, well, poutine's not on my profile diet, so I wouldn't want to be smuggled with that.
But you don't have to ingest.
I have kiddingly asked the Wild about 25 times if I could have been their compliance officer and just gone up there. And,
there you go.
Right from inside the bubble, but also tell Dumba to, hey, put up your mask. That type of thing.
Exactly. We have more good Twitter questions. Do want to thank Tony Hoagland, Hoaglund. Tony's been with us for a long time. He handles my insurance. He handles Michael Russo's insurance, and we've been quite happy with him.
It's not just a home or a car. It's the 6 months you've saved for the Ultra HD flat screen, just in time for football season. And the overtime you worked for that third car so your team can drive himself to practice. While other insurance companies just see them as a bundle or a combo, State Farm agent Tony Hoagland sees your home and car as things you work really hard for. Tony understands what your things really mean to you and is here to help you give them the protection they deserve. Talk to State Farm agent Tony Hoagland in Champlin for your home and auto insurance today. That's ChamplinInsurance.com.
From Rasmus on Twitter, can somebody please explain why Kapanen? I think we did enough Kapanen, and we'll move on from that. My bad. Let's see. Will Thompson asks, how difficult would it have been to write these game stories over the next week with newspaper deadlines? That is going to be a huge challenge for Sarah McClellan, who is up there in the bubble.
Yeah, I mean, Sarah's story is she's going to have to file before the game's over, and that's it. She's going to write for essentially online, most likely, and that's the worst part of these 9:30 games. I don't think it's fair. Yep. It's not fair. I mean, remember when you and I used to have the major problems with 8:30 starts during the playoffs, and now an hour and 15 minutes later, it's just crazy that the league does this. Not just even for the newspapers, for fans at home. And again, these are tentative 9:30 starts. Like these games are pushed back because the middle game has multiple overtimes. I mean, Sarah's not even going to get anything in any edition, and all of us are going to be really red-eyed and dreary the following days. And so, I just think it's just constantly amazing that the league always gives the Wild the short shrift always with these start times. It's insane to me. To me, it's unfair. I mean, at a minimum, if you're going to play 9:30 on game one, why can't the Wild be the early game on game two? It just makes no sense.
Johnson from Wisconsin, Kaprizov update. Why is it so hard to get the visa he needs to get him over here?
Well, I mean, I think in hindsight, he probably wishes he didn't fire Dan Milstein. Dan Milstein got Sorokin and Romanov here immediately. I mean, look, there's multiple issues here. One is there's one flight a week from Russia that gets over here to New York. And Sorokin and Romanov were on that first Tuesday ones, which means that Milstein figured out a way to get this approved within 3 or 4 days after the initial ability to sign these guys, because you can't do it. You can't get them over here before their visas are done. So the way it works is that I'm going to try to do this as accurately as possible, but it's really on the agent to get the visa done. It's on the teams to petition for the original P1 visa. And then once you get the P1 visa sort of approved, then you file this, what's called a DS-160 form. You submit that to the embassy. Usually the way it works is that a player from Russia would be given, say, an appointment, in November or December. And then what the team does is write a letter to try to expedite that. That goes in his file. But really it's on the shoulders of the agent, not the team, to get all this stuff done. And from what I understood is that Theophanis was all over this throughout the months of June and really May, and yet something fell apart here. And so from Romanov and Sorokin's point of view, they both flew to New York. Sorokin stayed there and did his 7-day quarantine in New York. Romanov spent the night in New York, flew to Toronto the next day, then did his 7-day quarantine there. Now they're both out of quarantine and they're practicing with their teams. They both can't play, but but really there's no other secret than you have to really know how to get it done. And both are on US P1 visas. So, I don't know where things sort of fell apart here. So the one thing I do know from talking to sources is that Chris O'Hearn, who's director of hockey operations from the Wild, actually reached out to Dan Milstein, the agent who was not taken by Kaprizov, who helped Kaprizov for the last 2 or 3 years, but wasn't eventually signed by him. He actually reached out to Dan Milstein to basically say, hey, what can we do here? Like, explain to us how to get this done, because obviously it's just, they haven't been able to get it done. So last I heard, the most important thing is, like, he could come into Canada on a tourist visa, but the Wild want to get him back to Minnesota. And so what they want to do is get him his actual U.S. work visa, get him an appointment with the consulate, and then bring him back to Minnesota after the fact. And look, again, a lot of people might think this is not a big deal because regardless, he wasn't going to be able to play this summer anyway. And the most important thing was to get him signed for next year. But remember, the Wild got kind of screwed here. The fact that he wasn't able to play this year, but yet they still could sign him and burn the first year, essentially about a $5 million investment, because now the Wild are going to have to re-sign him to a prolific contract next summer. And so they wanted to get something out of it. And what they wanted to get out of it was to get him into training camp, be around the team, learn his teammates, learn the staff, practice with the team, bring him up to Edmonton with them, get on that first team charter, practice there, be in the bubble, around his teammates, learn everybody. And yet he's still in Russia. So hopefully that'll change. But the reality is that what Bill Guerin hoped to achieve with this has not been accomplished yet. I know that doesn't answer the question completely succinctly, because I'll be completely honest, I don't know where this fell apart. But all I can tell you is that from everything I know from talking to agents, it's usually up to the agent to essentially do all the legwork to get the person over here, with the team sort of writing letters and petitioning behind the scenes to help the process along. And something fell awry here, and I don't want to throw blame on anything, but I think it's obvious where things fell apart here when you look at the fact that Dan Milstein, who was the agent that Kaprizov could have signed with, somehow got his players here, not only here almost immediately, but already done with their quarantines. So I think my gut says is that Kaprizov's probably second guessing his decision.
Johnson from Wisconsin asked about the Kraken rollout. John Krasinski and I were doing a show when we heard about the Kraken, and we both immediately made fun of the name. And it's very obvious that we are in the minority and that people love this.
Yeah, it's a weird name. There's no doubt about it. But man, that team's already just a marketing genius, and they don't even have a full staff. But Todd Lewicki, who's running the show there, the first Minnesota Wild president, the guy's just an absolute genius. He's built an incredible front office, a diverse front office. I mean, minorities, women, just a ton of talent in that front office, and business operations too. So hockey and business ops, and right now they hit this thing out of the ballpark. The name. I think some people love, some people just think, all right, it's strange. Especially all the innuendos that you could probably throw out there with it, the crack house and, all sorts of weird stuff that you could probably eventually call them. But the color scheme of the uniforms is just, to me, so sharp. Their logo's sharp. And I just love it, and I'm excited about Seattle coming in. I sort of feel bad for them right now on the way that they're coming in, though, in the middle of a global pandemic. I mean, let's be honest, there's absolutely no way the expansion draft is next June if next season starts late, because they're going to still be playing games. So we don't know when that's coming in, and I'm going to be very curious how the NHL figures out a way to start next season by December or January, short of this pandemic just disappearing off the planet. And after seeing what's going on with the absolute madness in baseball right now, I've got to tell you, I could almost bet my life that behind the scenes, the NHL is secretly modeling starting next season in maybe 4 hub cities and doing this bubble thing again. Because that's, to me, the only way that we can guarantee. I mean, can you envision yourself in December, Jim, being able to, as organizations, get on planes, as beat writers get on planes, go to different arenas that haven't been completely, to the NHL's maybe satisfaction, disinfected, and the only way you can control everything is by being in this sort of bubble thing. So it just wouldn't shock me if next season does not start in a very normal fashion.
Well, and as we're talking here, the Cardinals-Brewers game has just been canceled after a Cardinals positive test, and the Cardinals were just playing the Twins. Honestly, baseball should have done something like the NHL or the NBA did. They should have done some kind of a bubble thing. Of course, their original bubble plans were Arizona, Texas, and Florida, which are now hotbeds of the coronavirus. So they needed to pick a safe state and play in some sort of a bubble. They didn't, and they're going to pay for it.
Well, and that's why the NHL wound up going to Canada because
which is brilliant.
Yeah, and that lucky enough is why is. What's really funny about that actually is that the NHL was kicking itself originally for not thinking outside the box and doing like a resort situation like Orlando. But in the meantime, it looks like they've really pulled this off so far in Toronto and Edmonton. But if you remember, it was sort of baseball that first floated the idea of these bubbles. And it was the baseball players all just freaking out publicly that they were going to be sequestered away from their families. And now they're paying for it. And I just don't understand how they thought this was going to work, how they really genuinely felt like that you were going to be able to, in the middle of a pandemic, allow 30 whatever baseball teams players to essentially go out into the public every single day in their cities, come to the ballpark, go out in the public, come to the ballpark, get on a plane, go to the next ballpark. It just made no sense, and it completely paying the price right now.
Absolutely. Let's do one more Twitter question and a final thought from Michael. Michael, if you want to do some kind of a prediction, great, but we don't require that because predictions are stupid. From ND Guy living in Texas, was it the ice, the zone entry, or just rust that made the Wild power play look so bad the other night?
Well, Eric Stahl said that the ice actually was really good. He said like normal, that, late in periods and stuff, it got a little sketchy, and who knows what it'll be when they're playing the third game of the day. But they were talking in the locker room how the ice was actually pretty good. So I just think it was just early season issues. That, again, I mean, usually you have an entire training camp and preseason to get out the rust and all that type of stuff. And I thought their entries were terrible late in the game. They definitely need. I don't like the makeup of that second power play unit at all, and they need their players to be better. And again, if you're Dean Evison, I don't know how long you could wait. I mean, if all of a sudden guys aren't getting it done on that unit, do you have to throw Koivu out there? Do you have to throw Greenway out there? Do you have to throw Donato out there? It might make sense to have quick hooks in those situations. I will say the one thing I did learn the other night, Jim, is it's hard covering a game from home. I just it's very challenging. You just don't feel, and maybe it'll become easier as I watch the game more intently. I was sort of sitting at the one thing I'm going to sort of change my setup, but I was just sitting at my desk, TV on the wall, and it's just you don't get the sense of what's going on because you don't get to see the bench, you don't get to see the entire ice service. It just was really, really hard. I didn't feel like afterwards I knew exactly the guys that played well, that didn't. There's something to be said about being in that building and smelling the cold air and getting the sense of a broad sheet of that ice. And I was talking to the broadcasters about it as well. They have this what they're calling an all 12 feed, where the NHL is essentially giving. How Dick Bramer, have you watched these Twins games where Dick Bramer and Justin Morneau are sitting in their booth, but then they got this huge TV on the wall in front of them that gives them a look of the entire ball field. So if there's a ball shot, hit to left field, that a lot of times when we're watching on TV looks like it's absolutely demolished and leaving the ballpark, Bramer, before he calls it that way, could actually look up and see, by the way the left fielder is fielding the ball, no, actually that's a shallow fly ball.
Right.
Well, they have this all 12 feed that they're piping into these broadcasters that give the all 12 players on the ice, right? 10 skaters, 2 goalies. And apparently it's just the worst look in history. It's like a camera on the roof that's not zoomed in, that these players look like ants. And essentially the broadcasters I've talked to, not just with Minnesota, but throughout the league, I've talked to about 5 or 6 of them in the last 3 days, say it's absolutely useless, and that they are essentially calling the hockey game off the same feed that we are seeing in our homes. And just imagine how difficult that is. I mean, if you're take the Colorado Avalanche, if you got a bunch of left shot guys with 9 numbers that are 90, I mean, you don't know exactly who that player is until he maybe comes into the picture later in the play and turns around. You can see, oh yeah, that's Rantanen. And same thing with Minnesota. Even if you know the Wild, I mean, there's certain guys that if you're only seeing one of their numbers and they're a left shot guy, you might not know exactly who that is. And the other weird thing that Ryan Carter, Tom Reed, and Wes Walz are dealing with is that they have no clue what replay is coming up. So normally Ryan Carter and Wes Walz would be piping into the booth and talking to John Stroh or Pete Anderson or Mike Gangle or whatever, and basically saying, hey, this is what I'd like to see on this next break or this next stoppage. And now they're just totally guessing what's going to come up on their screen, and then they're just describing what they see. So this is going to be challenging not only for the writers at home, but the broadcasters. And so bear with us. But it's going to be hard. I mean, that's the thing, that I learned the other day is that it's hard to also sort of get motivated, Jim, to write that story. You feel like you're just at home and sort of faking it. So, it's going to be very, very interesting how we get this done.
Yes, and I hope that people understand and appreciate that people who actually get up and go to ballparks and arenas and stadiums and talk to a million people and get first person perspective, that's something that's important to journalism, it's important to sports journalism, and I can't wait till we get back to that.
Well, yeah, and I'm not even referring to that. I mean, just imagine also these Zooms. It's impossible to write this well, especially now that we're going to have like 20 people in these Zooms. I mean, you ask a question, they mute you right away. Yep. And that's going to be very, very hard to write a really quality story off that.
Yep.
As anybody that watches the Wild press conferences at home, that Sarah and myself and Dane and Dan and whoever's in that press conference, we can ask as many questions as we want usually until Sickman's going to cut it off. And now the NHL is running a show and they're muting it like it's a regular situation. And the other day I'm asking a question to Stahl, and Stahl's on a podium with Fiala. So I asked Stahl a question, and then I'm muted right away. And then I unmute myself because I want to ask Fiala a question right away. And whoever's on the other end of this in Edmonton is muting me right back and not giving me that chance to ask any follow-ups. And that is just going to be very, very difficult. And the beat writers, we were actually on a group text the other day, Sarah, Dane, and I, and how we're going to handle this. And it actually might get to the point where we might need to almost work together. Like if I want to ask about these three things and I only get one in, I might text Sarah, who's going to actually be in Edmonton, but on the same Zoom, and be like, hey, do me a favor, ask about this, or if she doesn't get a chance to ask about that, hey, send it to Dan or Dane. I mean, we're going to almost have to work together, which, as you know, is not the right way to deal with this stuff, but it's going to be a freaking disaster. And I just did this part 2 of this diary with Marcus Foligno, and Foligno was talking to me about it in the story about how it's just so weird after games where it's like, all right, we just played a game, and what do we do now? There's no media, they're so used to the media coming in there that it becomes part of their daily existence. And now it's like they just, as another player told me last week, it's like they don't feel like nearly the professional athlete because they're not dealing with media on an everyday basis. So, I think for a couple of them, it actually made them start to appreciate, like, kind of part of the cool job is getting to deal with media and having, quality articles out there and sound bites and things like that. So I know I'm rambling, but
hey, let's thank Profile by Sanford, Bosch Law, Bosch Law, Twill in the Edina Galleria, Tony Hogan, your State Farm agent in Champlin. Do you have a final thought or a pick?
No,
or anything
I think that was a good final thought. I don't need to make people listen to this any longer.
Pretty little city built on a hillside. Music in the bars and fire in the sky. We went to the beach and it was covered in ice. And I used to call it home. So much coming out, there's nothing going in. I know that you feel like you're never gonna win. Oh, but the world won't forgive